cetera, et cetera. I represent one other one. That is the speaker representing the Calaveras County everyday residents. And we're wondering what's going on. Like I said, I live in Mountain Range and I'm watching this project being developed from afar. I know how the county works. I've seen the games that have been played for the past 35 years. And I, as a Calaveras County everyday resident, am baffled how a project can get this far without being held to the law that I'm held. I hope you all realize what a precedent you will be setting no matter how you vote on this project. I hope you do what's right. You're going to go down in history. And you're going to be looked back on as precedent setters. There was a gentleman who was afraid to set precedent on the Planning Commission. You shouldn't be. Vote the right way.
Thank you, sir.
Well, I'm Gail Belmont, and I'm here on behalf of being a veteran, and I work with about 5 different nonprofit organizations. And in this county, it's very hard to get money for nonprofit organizations. I know there's a lot of people in this room that know how hard it is, and especially these last 2 years. And the Mimi family has offered numerous times to have different events out there, and they have not taken 1 penny of what they've earned on those nonprofits and donated it completely back to the nonprofit. And we have a lot of businesses that we here in Calaveras County that will charge you full price if you do an event and you're trying to make money for a nonprofit. So they will help the community just in the nonprofits itself. And anybody that's good-hearted in that way cannot be crooked all the way. And I hope you vote yes on this project.
Thank you, Gail. You have 30 seconds, Carol.
I'm afraid I might end up the late Darrell Russ. I almost never read a statement, and I've been making scribbling notes over these all day long, so I'm not sure that I'll do all that well. But Mr. Chairman and members of the Board of Supervisors, it has been a long day for all of us, and I appreciate your tolerance and patience. And Russ, I appreciate your handling of the meeting. It's been very good. Here are some examples of golf courses that are built on ag zone land with well and septic. These are just some of the region. In the region, I'm going to just identify them. Mountain Springs in Sonora, Lockford Springs in Lockford, Walnut Orchard. Stevenson Ranch in Merced County with a hunting reserve, still is. Del Rio was a chicken ranch, then expanded into a walnut orchard next door, and that became a crown jewel in Modesto. It's a beautiful course. Chardonnay in Napa County. The one that's probably most comparable to Trinitas is the Wente course over in Livermore. I have to go to the Livermore clinic, VA clinic, on occasion. And when you're driving up through that area, it's very rural. It's actually on the outskirts of Livermore. Beautiful course. It has become like a Napa Valley type of destination for golf and fine foods and care. It has not changed the rural nature of that area. By golly, it's still rural, despite the fact that they have a golf course out there. Based on my contacts with 57 counties, and you have my notes on that, I gave them to you today, but I've also given them to you in the past, identifying every call that I made to every county in this state. I say 57, there are 58 in California. I didn't call Calaveras, but I did call all the others. 46 of those 57 counties said they didn't see a serious problem with having golf courses on ag land. Golf course on ag land is not a land use problem in the vast majority of counties in this state. according to my own research, my own contact with every planning department in this state. There's 3 important points, or at least 3 points. I call them important because I wrote them.
About 30 seconds or so.
Down to 30 seconds already? Man. And I'm the last one. I'll use my 30 seconds. My basic point is just going to be this. In one direction or another, from one direction or another, you've all heard every possible, conceivable issue on this project. The question I have is, do you see another project on the horizon that you're actually thinking about, that actually exists in the process anywhere, that offers jobs or revenue increases? And certainly revenue is an economic factor that is in the general plan and in the goals section of the general plan. So, whoever did that. Economic benefits are a significant part of the general plan as it exists right now. It shouldn't be ignored. But the question I have still stands. Do you have something else that's better? I support Trinitas, and I hope you do too. Thank you. I think I went 45 seconds.
No, you went 1 minute over, but I'll let you slide. Okay, do we have any other individuals wishing to address the board at this time? Okay, seeing none, we do have this issue of the staff having to leave. So the procedure that I outlined in the beginning was that we would have Mr. Connolly come up to recap his thoughts or comments about the proceedings at this point, and then we'd give Mr. Abbott a chance to wrap it up. So let's just power on through if we can.
I was just submitting written copies of the same comments that I emailed in on Friday, so I assume you probably already have them. First of all, KIRC joins in the comments of the Sierra Club, the Oak Foundation, CSERT, Calaveras Planning Coalition, and My Valley Springs. I want to categorize all the comments that came in. You heard a large number of comments that weren't really relevant to the decision you have to make. Some were, let's do anything to get the water, let's do anything to prevent the water going to San Joaquin County. It's not a good rationale to approve a bad project to use water for an improper purpose. It's not a good policy decision to approve the first project comes along that says it's going to suck groundwater out to prevent it from going to San Joaquin County if it's a bad project. Wait for a good project and use the water for an appropriate project. The second was jobs for any purpose. Build the houses, even if they're 14 houses in an ag area and it's improper just because we need to hammer nails. The other areas was taxes for any purpose. Again, if it's a bad project, approve a project that's really going to generate tax revenue. Additionally, you didn't hear any response today, and I don't think you're going to hear one now, to the economic analysis that we presented. We showed you that the golf course figures that they presented are pure fantasy. They didn't put one golf course expert up here so far. They didn't put one economist up here so far. The report they submitted was not by an economist. Your tax revenues are going to be less than $20,000 on this project. $250,000 for schools isn't enough to cover the cost of housing, providing classrooms for those students that are generated by this project. The road impacts, the fire impacts, those are just mitigations for the impacts caused by this project. They are not a benefit to Calaveras County. So you've heard basically sell houses for any purpose, hammer nails for any purpose. You've got a decision that's different than that. And what I'm going to ask you to do before I'm over is to make the same decision that you asked the planning staff to make over a year ago. When we came here originally, you made the correct decision and you said send this EIR back, analyze this project as if the golf course wasn't there. Now, the EIR came back in final form and said we can't really do that completely. And we can't analyze all the impacts once this golf course is built. But we're going to ask you to go through the same mental exercise that you asked the planning staff to go through. What would you do with this project today if they came before you without all the pretty pictures, without all the golf course built, and said, we want to build a golf course relying exclusively on well water, taking vast amounts of water, possibly impacting the neighbors in terms of water, definitely impacting the neighbors in terms of agricultural use. We've got an EIR that shows that it's not appropriate for this agricultural area. It's going to be a clubhouse, it's going to be a lodge, it's going to be 14 houses, it's going to be in the middle of this ag area, and you saw the same group of people come up before you today. What would be your response? And I have almost no doubt that your response would be, Mr. Nemi, this is maybe a great project for somewhere in Calaveras County, but it is not appropriate at this location. It's not a project that we want to build 14 houses, a lodge, a clubhouse, and a golf course on septic. We don't want to build a lodge, a golf course, a clubhouse, and this giant recreational resort on well water. Get your water source from CCWD, and if you get it in 5 years or 10 years, come back here and we will approve your project if it's in the right location. But that's not what you're being done. You're being held blackmailed. Somebody's coming in saying, we've got it built already, we've already got it here, you better approve the project. And that's not the appropriate approach to take. And I'm going to go back to the approach that I suggested this morning, which is you have the ability to deny this project based on evidence that's been presented to you. And that's the correct course of action to take. If you approve the project, you approve and you reward clearly a process that has not been done correctly. There have been misrepresentations by the applicant from the beginning of the process, and some of those continue even today. Representations that the Audubon Society has approved this project are not accurate. Representations that there has been no violation of the Williamson Act are simply not accurate. You destroy the integrity of the general plan if you approve the project. You're telling people that they lie, that have property rights based on moving into an area that's agricultural preserve, that are ranching and farming, that their rights aren't as important as somebody who builds a golf course and violates it. You damage the integrity of the general plan. There have been people who have told you, if we planted grapes, we would use as much water. Great, plant grapes. If Mr. Nemi wanted to plant grapes, we wouldn't be here opposing it. If he wanted to plant olives throughout the entire project and use the same amount of water. It's allowed in an agricultural zone. We wouldn't be here. But the fact is, he built a golf course. If you approve the project, the other agencies are still here. The Department of Fish and Game isn't going to go away. Fish and Wildlife isn't going to go away. Those other agencies are not going to disappear. Even though you may say, we only need to do it on a 1-to-1 mitigation ratio, for example, they're going to be saying we need to do mitigation on a 3-to-1 ratio. If you approve the project, finally, the developer is going to challenge the project anyway. If you approve part of it, if you approve all of it, if you deny it, if you approve any part of it or all of it, he is going to challenge the mitigation measures that he's made it clear he does not agree with. If you deny the project based on the lack of overriding considerations, based on the fact that minor economic benefits, minor tax revenues, job generation that could be generated by 14 houses anywhere in the county, school revenue fees, for example, that don't mitigate the impacts of the students, if you deny it based on those factors, they will not succeed on an appeal. If you deny it based on general plan inconsistency, the fact that a recreational use like this is not consistent with your agricultural zone, it is not allowed there, this is not tied to a stream, to a cave, to a natural resource, it can be located anywhere that you have agricultural land, then you are in fact coming in and saying that your general plan restriction of agricultural means nothing. You can locate this kind of resort anywhere. So deny it based on inconsistency with your general plan designation of agriculture. And deny it finally based on the fact that it's just not compatible with the surrounding agricultural land uses. I mean, there is no doubt that that conclusion is reached by the environmental impact report, just like it realizes that there's not enough water available at this time for the project. The benefits of that are you send a message loud and clear that your general plan means something, that integrity in planning means something, and that you control the process. Developers don't just come in and throw something on the ground and then ask for forgiveness. You set up a situation where a challenge by a developer will not be sustained by a court. You send a message, follow the law, be honest, do real economic development in the county, and you also send a message that property rights of the citizens of Calaveras County, including water rights and their ability to rely on the general plan, really means something, and that you're going to enforce it. So the recommended KIRC is to deny this project based on all of the reasons that I've given you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Connolly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. First of all, to respond to Supervisor Callaway, I stand corrected on the reference to Audubon International. I apologize to the board and to the members of the public. That was an error on my part, and certainly we never represented that the Audubon Society approved the project. But it does hold a certification from Audubon International, apparently an independent organization. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Now, to turn to the evidence that's before you. We heard a discussion today about an economic model. I think the phrase was regional economic theory. And I hold a degree in economics, but I became a lawyer. I could see what that argument was all about. The proposition that was set to you was that Calaveras County's population would support only one golf course. Theoretically, that's correct. But put that comment in the context that, in fact, you have, I believe, 6 operating golf courses in this county. And so when you consider the economic critique of the effect of one more project, it's predicated upon assumption that can't be ground truth in terms of what's happening in the county. Now, I'll give you a comparison. Plumas County. I don't know if any of you are golfers, but Plumas County is famous in Northern California as a destination county for golf. And there's a number of courses that have been constructed in the east part of the county. It well exceeds any mathematical theory of how many people that live in the county could possibly play golf. Well, what happens? People drive up from the Bay Area, they come up from Sacramento, they spend 2 days, 3 days playing golf. That's essentially a destination concept. That's a different economic model, and I think that's what is the operating model here in Calaveras County. That's why you have 6 courses, or at least more than the mathematical percentage of just one course per 40,000 people. And so the analysis that you heard was predicated on a set of assumptions that cannot be ground truth in terms of the county. Our economic information was not offered and is not presented as a hard and fast estimate of numbers. In fact, if you look at it, and we made corrections after the Planning Commission presentation in light of the public comments, it essentially offers brackets of what could occur under a different set of assumptions. And we don't make a hard and fast projection as to what set of assumptions are going to apply, but it does give different theories in terms of the number of rounds, how many people are coming from out of county, to give you some sense in terms of what the potential economic benefit. You do have testimony in the form of a letter submitted by PR consultant who is an advisor to a number of golf courses that essentially supports the theory that the bigger the mousetrap, the better the mousetrap. If you have more courses here, if you have a PGA quality course like Trinitas, you will attract additional golfers into the region, and they do not believe that you will be cannibalizing sales. That explains why Greenhorn Creek came to the Planning Commission and supported the project. It may also explain the fact that despite all the theory, whatever we project in terms of cannibalization or lack of cannibalization, or what the opponents offer, none of the operating courses in this county, to my knowledge, have come in and said, don't build this project. We don't want any more courses. They probably have the best credibility in terms of analyzing what's the relationship of a new course to existing courses in the community. They aren't here. They've had ample opportunity to submit comments. Turning to water, just stop and think about the evidence that you heard. Mr. Patterson from CCWD came in and gave an excellent history and overview of the role of CCWD in terms of groundwater management and conjunctive use in terms of surface water. CCWD believes that groundwater is an appropriate use to support this project and the full project with a set of recommended mitigation measures, which are part of your EIR. And as to the ones that haven't been accepted from the applicant's perspective, we're agreeable to those. Now, I mean, that's staff's call eventually as to how those go in, but we don't stand in opposition. Number 2, you heard the testimony of Gene Nelson. Gene Nelson has almost 40 years of hydrologic experience in this county. That, to me, as I get older, I think, age brings wisdom, right? And I think that Mr. Nelson's experience when he says that he believes professionally, as a licensed engineer, number 27 in the state of California, having worked here for 40 years, that's competent, substantial evidence to support a conclusion that we're asking the board to reach in terms of an adequate water supply. You've heard testimony from the neighbors today that says this project has not been adversely impacting our wells. You've heard some of the evidence to the contrary. But you also have evidence in the record in the form of a letter from Abbey Wells, which is part of the record attached to our materials, that first surfaced a couple of years ago. And Abbey Wells goes out and services a lot of the wells that are in the neighborhood. And their testimony, his analysis was these wells are failing because of age, lack of maintenance, change in standards, but not due to changing water tables. So you've got CCWD's testimony, you've got Nelson's testimony, you've got Abbey Wells that's telling you that the failure in the surrounding wells has to do with issues other than the Trinitas project. And you have the testimony of existing residents out there that live right next to the project and say they are not having any impact. You have the testimony that's been offered by Geocon, who basically supports a lot of the same conclusions that Nelson set forth. Their position is you need 5 years of data. Well, the reality is the legislature says you're supposed to complete an EIR in 1 year. There's no way you can reconcile the need to collect 5 years of data and also complete an EIR in 1 year. So with respect to Geocon's proposal, but in fact the 5 years monitoring is reflected in the proposed mitigation measures, you can't reconcile Geocon's position on that. Finally, the opinion from Mr. Schmidt, I looked at his resume. I don't believe he's worked in Calaveras County. I will comfortably hold up testimony of Mr. Nelson with 40 years experience against a consultant who has not worked in this county. I've mentioned that we're agreeable to the CCWD mitigation measures as it relates to water that were referenced by Mr. Patterson. We talked about consistency. You heard different interpretation of what constitutes consistency. One of the points I wanted to emphasize that you heard from another source was one of the points I made initially. Your general plan designates the area for natural resource lands. Your general plan provides that recreation is an allowed use in all of those districts. So when we make the argument that this project is consistent with your general plan text, it's not a leap of logic. We are drawing upon the existing adopted language contained within your general plan. One of the speakers posed the question, do the rules apply to everyone? There is obviously a lot of debate as to what happened and who said and what the history was. The bottom line is, and I argued against this, and I think you made the wrong decision, but you made it nevertheless. The board, I think, wiped the slate clean and leveled the playing field when you reversed on the question of the environmental baseline. That was a decision made probably 15, 16 months ago. I think it was the wrong decision, but it's ancient history at this point in time. That was the board's action of saying we are going to hold these applicants like we would any other applicant. They have to account for everything that's taken place. And the issue of the legality and illegality really becomes secondary because at that point in time, the EIR is then focused on the physical changes in the environment, which is what it's supposed to be focused upon. So I believe the playing field has been leveled. There was a reference to a failed well to the north in 2004. That well failed before irrigation started on the Trinitas project. So it's hard for us to understand how the Trinitas project could cause that impact. Finally, in terms of the statement of overriding considerations, from a judicial perspective, a statement of overriding considerations draws upon the broadest discretion of the Board of Supervisors. We've offered you a menu of points that we think justify. And there's no set menu that you have to pick from. There's no mandatory set of criteria that you have to pick from. You can ignore the economic information we've provided. You can use it. We've identified, we believe, a number of relevant public benefits in terms of employment opportunities, TOT, and the like. The numbers may vary, but it's up to you to decide whether or not those numbers are still important as public benefits to improve this project. I invited at the beginning, we started this about 6-7 hours ago, that if somebody's got a better plan to bring jobs and invest in the county, please stand up. And there's been, the silence has been deafening. I mean, my clients are willing to deliver and bring investment to the county and create jobs. That brings me, I'm going to wrap up now. It brings me back to my original question. What is your vision for the county? Your general plan contemplates that destination recreational uses are consistent in your natural resource categories. This is a project for which there is an adequate water supply. This is a project for which there are ample points of consistency established by your own EIR and by our own analysis. And the question is this the kind of project that you think will carry Calaveras County forward in the future? It meets the legal standards, and we would certainly request your support for the full project. Thank you very much.
Anyone have any questions of Mr. Connolly? A few.
I'll answer
Oh,
Mr. Connolly's
I'm
question.
sorry. I apologize, Mr. Abbott. It's been a long meeting. I think Supervisor Callaway has a question.
Well, I have, of course, more than one, but let me just start since time doesn't allow me to go much further. But, considering all the mitigations required, when would you expect the project to officially open if approved?
Well, we would, as stated in our materials, we believe that in fact a limited golf course operation is compatible under the existing zoning today. So we could start limited golf tomorrow, well not tomorrow, but if the board approved it. In terms of actual operations, I mean the course, we'd have to go through the conditions of approval and see what is linked to just the course, what is linked to the subdivision, what is linked to the additional amenities as well. And we haven't broken it out in that. But we're anxious to start yesterday.
Okay.